So far everything has been very live, like here, playing notes on the keyboard and tweaking a couple of faders, but let's do something more composed and have a look at the modulation graphs. You'll find them beneath the step event, so I'll just open up the second step module here. We're still only using one quarter note time point with a division of 2 to get a step in between. But next to division is also multiply that instead repeats the incoming points. And you can see with 2 here, I get exactly the same, but with more space to draw. So I just click on every other. I could also have made a 1-point time graph and then clicked on all on. But I'll just do like this and multiply with 16. And there we have what sounds like no apparent difference so far. But here's then the range of the graph, and as you see as I draw there in the corner, you can see what number that is. And I'll zoom here to get into the range of the cutoff on the synth, since I want to make a long sweep like the one I did manually before with the fader. Now the graph needs a target, and for this I open up the mod module, which share more than a few similarities with MIDI control. I'll select the instrument again and cutoff, just as we did before, and turn the graph on. There you hear it. Now you might hear it, and you will notice here in Basil that it only changes with every step event we drew. But I can change that in a number of different ways. I could also put in 20 here, for example, and switch to milliseconds, and now you hear and see that we're getting a smooth sound and motion. Now I could also put in 32 here and change to F, and this is now relative to our tempo with a 32 note fraction, which can be used in really interesting rhythmical ways, basically by letting you step through the graph in triplets or whatever. So I'll just keep it there. Now I could use that same graph also for the duration we did. So here I set that up like before and turn the graph on, and you will then hear again it's using those numbers, which is a very long multiplication. I can switch to scale here and put on float, and then a very small number, 0.05. And there you see it's being scaled now. It's a very slight change. But with these modules I can actually augment the graph. So turn on MIDI learn, turn the knob we used before for duration, and I'll just actually bypass then the original duration. Then I'll set a max scale here to 0.04, and now you see and hear that we can scale this duration with the fader as in the last tutorial, but we're really just changing the scale of the graph, meaning we get some of the motion for free. I can also offset a graph. So if I again turn MIDI learn on and take the fader from the cutoff, again I'll bypass the original one, and then for example put in 40. That will then add to the graph, so when the fader is all the way down we get 0 added, but as we turn the fader up, as you can hear, we go all the way to max cutoff, since we're adding 40 to a graph that doesn't go below 90. You can also use negative ranges, of course. But yeah, with this alone you can have fun for hours really. If you don't turn on the graph buttons, by the way, and just leave it at offset mode, you're free to use them as regular MIDI control slots, meaning you can set up your entire MIDI control with these small modules and their presets. They have the added benefit that if you choose the target category called Deer, it will send its parameters to all instruments it's attached to, so you could have a single fader control 16 instruments at the same time. I'll just save our modules, starting here and calling it bypass synth, and store that as number 2 since I like to keep the other one. And now this step module with the graph, I'll call that sweep, and again to save the original I'll save that as number 2. Notice that when I press mod here, it's exactly the same as when I press it up there in the main interface. So I'll call this cotton dur again as number 2, since then I have number 1 as off, and I'll actually just call that off. And so now I can turn modulation on and off simply by changing the preset there in the mod module, or have other targets if I wanted to. So I'll just store the main page so it will remember to use these new number 2 presets and save the set.